My name is Alicia, and I am 34 years old. That rainy night when my husband abandoned me on a deserted road was the culmination of 3 years of escalating control. As I stood there, soaked to the bone 25 miles from home, I never imagined it would become my moment of liberation. When he drove away, leaving me stranded to teach me a lesson, he made his final mistake. He never expected what would happen next. Before I tell you how I ended up stranded in the pouring rain 25 miles from home, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. If this story resonates with you, subscribe to join our community of survivors who turned pain into power. I had always been career-driven. By my early 30s, I had worked my way up to becoming a marketing executive at Horizon Tech, one of the fastest-growing software companies in Seattle. My days were filled with strategy meetings, creative sessions, and the satisfaction of seeing my campaigns succeed. I loved my job and the independence it gave me. I met Garrett at an industry conference in Portland. I was presenting our latest campaign results, and he approached me afterward with thoughtful questions that showed genuine interest in my work. With his confident smile and attentive gaze, he seemed different from the networking opportunists I usually encountered at these events. "Your presentation was brilliant," he said. "The way you connected emotional storytelling with data analytics is exactly what my company needs." Garrett was the marketing director for a competing firm, slightly older than me, with a polished presence that spoke of privilege and success. He asked me to coffee, which turned into dinner, which turned into the most engaging conversation I had experienced in years. Our romance moved quickly. Within weeks, we were spending every weekend together, either at my apartment in Seattle or his luxury condo, with a view of Mount Rainier. He would surprise me with weekday deliveries of my favorite lunch during busy periods, or text me article links relevant to my projects. He seemed to understand the demands of my career perfectly. "I love how passionate you are about your work," he would say, massaging my shoulders after a long day. "We are going to be an unstoppable power couple." Looking back, there were subtle red flags I ignored. The way he would casually pick up my phone when it chimed with notifications. How he would question why certain meetings ran late. The slight tension in his voice when I mentioned male colleagues. "Just looking out for you," he would say when I called him on it. There are a lot of opportunistic people in this industry. I later learned that Garrett came from significant family wealth. His father owned a chain of car dealerships across 3 states, and he had grown up accustomed to getting whatever he wanted. His parents had high expectations and little tolerance for failure, shaping him into someone who presented perfect appearances while harboring deep insecurities. After 8 months of dating, he proposed during a surprise trip to Napa Valley. The ring was extravagant, the setting perfect. I said yes, without hesitation, believing I had found a true partner who valued my ambition as much as his own. Our wedding was an elaborate affair at one of Seattle's most exclusive venues. 200 guests, custom everything, and a honeymoon in the Maldives. I was so caught up in the romance that I missed how Garrett had taken control of most wedding decisions, gently overriding my preferences with better options. The shift after marriage was subtle at first. Garrett would call multiple times during my workday to check in. He suggested I copy him on my work calendar so we can coordinate better. When I would mention upcoming projects, he would frown slightly. "You are already so busy. Are you sure you want to take that on?" It was during this time that I first met Kyle. Our company had hired him as the new head of corporate security after a data breach. Tall, reserved, and intensely professional, Kyle implemented new security protocols throughout the building. During our first meeting, he barely smiled, focused entirely on explaining the security measures my team needed to follow. "Your marketing department handles sensitive product information," he explained. "You will need to be particularly vigilant." I remember thinking how different he was from Garrett. Where my husband was charming and expressive, Kyle was steady and economical with words. Little did I know how important he would become in my life. The first major argument with Garrett happened 6 months into our marriage. I had missed a dinner with his important clients due to a server crash that threatened to take down our company website. I worked with our IT team until 10 at night to resolve the issue. When I finally got home, Garrett was waiting in the dark living room, a glass of scotch in his hand. "You embarrassed me tonight," he said quietly. "Carl Baker could have doubled our business connections." "I texted you about the emergency," I replied, exhausted. "The entire marketing campaign would have failed if we did not fix it." "Your priorities seem clear," he said, walking past me to the guest bedroom. The next morning, he apologized with flowers and breakfast. "I overreacted. I just missed you and wanted to show you off to everyone." The apology felt good, but it established a pattern. Garrett would push boundaries, withdraw affection when displeased, then reconcile with grand gestures. After each cycle, he increased his monitoring of my schedule and communications. I started justifying his behavior to myself. He was not controlling, just protective. He was not jealous, just devoted. I was the lucky one to have a husband who cared so much. I was wrong. As my career continued to flourish, Garrett became increasingly dissatisfied with my work hours and success. What once seemed like supportive interest transformed into constant scrutiny. He would text me throughout the day, expecting immediate responses, and question why certain meetings took so long. "I just worry about you, overworking yourself," he would say, when I expressed frustration. "Someone has to look out for your well-being." 6 months into our marriage, Garrett asked for access to my work email to help manage your schedule better than you do. When I refused, citing company confidentiality policies, he spent days giving me the cold shoulder, making comments about secrets and transparency in marriage. The incident at the Horizon Tech Christmas party marked a turning point. My team had just landed the Walker account, a major victory we had been pursuing for months. Our CEO, Richard, was praising my strategy in front of the executive team when Garrett interrupted. "Alicia has been working too hard on this," he said, putting his arm around my waist too tightly. "I barely see my wife anymore. Richard, you should give her a break before I have to steal her away completely." The awkward silence that followed was excruciating. Richard gave a tight smile and moved on, but the damage was done. I had been undermined in front of everyone who mattered professionally. In the car afterward, I confronted Garrett. "You embarrassed me in front of my entire company." "I was joking," he replied dismissively. "Everyone thought it was charming. You are being oversensitive." 2 weeks later, I received the promotion to VP of Marketing. Instead of celebrating, Garrett questioned whether I had time for another demanding role and suggested I think about our future family plans before accepting. When I pointed out he had never mentioned wanting children immediately, he accused me of changing the agreement of our marriage. I accepted the promotion anyway. That night, Garrett did not come home until after midnight, claiming he needed space to think about our priorities. Garrett began subtly criticizing my friends and family. My college friend Jenna was too negative, my sister Alyssa was a bad influence with her divorce talk, and my mother Rose called too often. Each criticism came with suggestions to reduce contact. "I am just trying to protect our marriage from outside influences," he would say. Financial control came next. Despite my substantial salary, Garrett insisted on joint accounts that he primarily managed. He began questioning my purchases, from business clothes to birthday gifts for colleagues. "Do you really need another blazer?" he would ask. "That coffee shop appears on your statement 3 times this week." Then came the dinner party incident. We were hosting his business associates at our home. I shared an amusing client story, and everyone laughed. Everyone except Garrett, who fixed me with a cold stare. "Alicia has a habit of interrupting more important conversations," he said to the table. "She gets overexcited and forgets her manners sometimes." The room went silent. His friend Victor looked uncomfortable while his wife glanced at me sympathetically. I excused myself to the kitchen, fighting back tears as I prepared dessert. Around this time, Kyle, the security director, implemented new protocols requiring executive staff to have personal safety consultations. During our private meeting, he remained professionally distant but thorough. Executive positions sometimes attract unwanted attention, he explained. We need to discuss how you protect your personal information and physical safety. I found myself sharing more than necessary about my home life, something about Kyle's steady presence, making it easy to talk. He listened without judgment, asking clarifying questions about my security practices. Your personal safety matters beyond this building, he said before I left. Remember that. The situation with Garrett escalated when he discovered text messages from male colleagues on my phone. One evening, I returned from a shower to find him scrolling through my conversations. Who is Thomas? Why is he texting you at 9 at night about presentations? His voice was frighteningly calm. He is the new product manager. We have a joint presentation tomorrow, I explained, feeling violated by the invasion of privacy. You should have told me, he said, throwing the phone onto the bed. No more secrets. The next day, Garrett had my car fitted with a GPS tracker for safety reasons. He began texting me when I deviated from my usual routes, calling if I was not home exactly when expected. I worry when you are late, he would say. Is it wrong to care about my wife's whereabouts? We had planned a weekend trip to Portland for our anniversary. I had packed my bags the night before, excited for a break from the tension. When I came downstairs in the morning, Garrett was unpacking my suitcase. The trip is canceled, he announced, pulling out a cocktail dress I had packed. If you plan to wear this, clearly your intentions for this trip were not about us. That is for the dinner reservation you made, I explained, bewildered. I did not approve this, he said, gesturing to my carefully packed case. We will go when you can prioritize our marriage properly. As I watched him dismantle my belongings, a realization crystallized. Something was seriously wrong in my marriage. The man I had fallen in love with had been replaced by someone I increasingly feared. The situation took a darker turn when my mother fell ill with pneumonia. She lived in Portland, just a 3-hour drive away, but when I told Garrett I needed to visit her, his response was calculated. Your mother has always been dramatic about her health, he said. Let your sister handle it this time. We have the Wilson account presentation this week. When I insisted on going, he relented, but with conditions. I could only stay one night, and I had to call him every 2 hours. During my brief visit, he texted continuously, eventually calling the hospital room directly when I missed his check-in by 10 minutes. I was speaking with her doctor, I explained. You agreed to our communication terms, he replied coldly. After returning from Portland, I found myself becoming increasingly anxious. I was walking on eggshells in my own home, second-guessing every decision. That was when I reached out to Kyle at work, asking if he would meet me for coffee to discuss additional security protocols. We met at a small cafe 3 blocks from the office. Kyle listened intently as I vaguely described my concerns about privacy and security at home. Though I never explicitly mentioned Garrett, Kyle seemed to understand the subtext. Sometimes security threats come from unexpected sources, he said carefully. As a security professional, I can offer consultation services outside of work hours if needed. He gave me his personal card with a handwritten number on the back. This line is secure and private. I tucked the card into my wallet, feeling both reassured and frightened that I might need it. That evening, Garrett found the receipt from the cafe in my purse. Coffee with Kyle Matthews, he read, his voice dangerously quiet. Our company security director. Are you having an affair, Alicia? It was a work meeting about new security protocols, I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. At a cafe instead of his office? Do you think I am stupid? He threw the receipt at me. No more private meetings with men. Period. The argument escalated until Garrett slammed my laptop closed so hard the screen cracked. Oops, he said with a cold smile. Looks like you will need to work from home tomorrow where I can keep an eye on you. That night, after he fell asleep, I began documenting everything. I created a password-protected file on my work computer and recorded dates, times, and descriptions of incidents. I also started secretly recording our conversations using an app Kyle had recommended for documentation of security incidents. Following Kyle's professional advice, I established emergency contacts and protocols. I purchased a second phone that I kept in my desk at work, programmed with essential numbers and the rideshare apps Garrett had deleted from my primary phone to save money. Garrett's verbal abuse intensified. When I questioned his decision to cancel my credit card without telling me, he launched into a tirade. "You are becoming unhinged," he shouted. "I am trying to protect our financial future from your reckless spending, and you treat me like a criminal. Maybe if you focused more on being a good wife instead of a corporate puppet, I would not need to make these decisions for you." I suggested marriage counseling, hoping a professional might help Garrett recognize his behavior. He initially refused, calling it outsider interference, but eventually agreed after I broke down in tears. We attended exactly 2 sessions before Garrett declared the therapist biased and unqualified after she gently questioned his need for control. "She obviously has an agenda against traditional marriages," he fumed as we drove home. "I am not going back to be vilified." My work became my sanctuary, but even that was under threat. A major product launch required late nights from the entire marketing team. Garrett began showing up at the office unannounced, bringing food to make sure you are eating, but really to survey who I was working with. The situation reached a breaking point when I discovered spyware on my phone that forwarded my messages to Garrett and tracked my location. I found it only because Kyle had implemented a company-wide digital security training that included checking personal devices for unauthorized apps. "This is serious," Kyle said when I showed him privately. "This type of surveillance is not just invasive, it is potentially illegal." He helped me secure a new phone through the company's security protocol and showed me how to protect my digital privacy. More importantly, he helped me create a safety plan. "If you ever feel unsafe, you need immediate options," he explained, showing me how to program emergency contacts with single-button activation. When I confronted Garrett about the spyware, he turned it back on me with frightening effectiveness. "I installed it because I suspected you were cheating," he said. "And clearly, I was right. Why else would you be so secretive with your security boyfriend?" "Kyle is a colleague helping with company-mandated security," I insisted. "Lie to yourself if you want, but do not lie to me," Garrett responded with terrifying calm. That night, I broached the subject of separation for the first time. The rage in Garrett's eyes made me step back, but it quickly transformed into tears. "I am under so much pressure at work," he sobbed. "My father is threatening to cut me out of the business if we do not hit targets this quarter. I know I have been difficult, but I cannot lose you too. Please, I will change. I will get help." Against my better judgment and Kyle's professional advice, I agreed to give him another chance. It was a decision I would soon regret. 3 weeks after Garrett's tearful promises, nothing had changed except his tactics. Instead of obvious control, he employed guilt and manipulation. When I mentioned my concerns, he would remind me of his vulnerability in sharing his work stress, making me feel cruel for attacking him during a difficult time. The incident that finally ended our marriage began with a dinner for an important potential client, Maxwell Richardson. Garrett had insisted on attending, despite my reservations. "As your husband, I should be there to support you," he said, though his tone suggested surveillance rather than support. The dinner started pleasantly enough at Seattle's most exclusive steakhouse. Maxwell brought his wife Stephanie, and initially, Garrett was charm personified. But as the evening progressed and the business discussion deepened, Garrett began interjecting with increasing frequency. "Alicia tends to overcomplicate these strategies," he said after I explained our marketing approach. "The simpler solution would be..." When Maxwell asked about our international capabilities, Garrett answered before I could, providing incorrect information I had to carefully correct. "My husband is thinking of our previous approach," I said diplomatically. "Our current global strategy has evolved significantly." I could feel Garrett's anger simmering beside me. When the dessert arrived, he placed his hand on my thigh under the table, squeezing painfully hard while maintaining a pleasant expression. I knew what that meant. I was in trouble. The drive home began in tense silence. We headed east on Interstate 90, the route taking us through increasingly remote areas as we approached our neighborhood in the foothills. Rain had started falling, light at first, then becoming a torrential downpour that matched the atmosphere in the car. "You contradicted me 5 times," Garrett finally said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I needed to provide accurate information," I replied, trying to remain calm. "Maxwell is considering a 7-figure contract. You made me look like an idiot," he said, accelerating dangerously on the wet road. "Is that your goal now? To humiliate me?" My phone rang. The display showed it was Kyle. Under normal circumstances, I would have let it go to voicemail given Garrett's mood. But our company was in the middle of implementing new security protocols after a suspected breach attempt. "I need to take this. It could be about the security alert from earlier," I said, answering before Garrett could object. "Alicia, we have confirmed unauthorized access attempts to the marketing server," Kyle said. "We need to verify you have not shared your credentials with anyone, even family members." I felt Garrett watching me, listening to every word. "No, I have not shared my login information with anyone," I replied professionally. "Is someone with you right now?" Kyle asked, his security training detecting something in my voice. "That is correct," I answered, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Are you in a safe situation to talk?" "No, not at the moment." There was a brief pause. "Understood. Please call the security desk when you can speak freely. This is priority level 2. As I ended the call, Garrett swerved the car violently to the shoulder of the road, the tires skidding on the wet asphalt. "That was him? Was not it? Your security boyfriend checking in?" His voice had taken on a frightening edge I had never heard before. "It was about a security breach at work," I explained. "We have sensitive client data." "Stop lying," he shouted, slamming his hand on the dashboard. "I saw how he looked at you at the company picnic. I am not blind." He pulled back onto the highway, driving even faster now, windshield wipers struggling against the downpour. "You have been undermining me for months," he continued, his words coming faster, making me look incompetent at work, spending nights at the office, secretive phone calls. "Do you think I am an idiot?" The rain intensified, making it difficult to see the road ahead. We were now on a rural highway, surrounded by forest, at least 25 miles from home. No streetlights, no nearby buildings, just darkness and sheets of rain. Garrett suddenly slammed on the brakes, pulling onto a gravel turnout barely visible in the storm. The sudden stop threw me forward against my seatbelt. "This ends now," he said, turning to face me fully. "You are going to quit your job, cut all contact with Kyle, and recommit to this marriage on my terms." I looked at my husband, seeing him clearly perhaps for the first time. The charming man I had married was gone, if he had ever truly existed. In his place was someone consumed by insecurity and the need for control. "No," I said simply. The single word hung between us. Garrett looked genuinely shocked, as if the possibility of refusal had never occurred to him. "What did you say?" His voice was dangerously quiet. I said no. I will not quit my job. I will not cut contact with colleagues. And I will not continue in a marriage built on control and fear. His face contorted with rage. "Get out." "What?" "Get out of the car. Now." He reached across me and opened my door, rain immediately pelting the interior. "Garrett, we are in the middle of nowhere. It is pouring rain. You need to learn a lesson about respect and who is in charge in this marriage. Get out, or I will drag you out." I believed him. The look in his eyes told me he was capable of exactly that. I unbuckled my seatbelt and stepped out into the torrential downpour. Within seconds, I was soaked completely through, my hair plastered to my face, my clothes clinging to my body. Garrett leaned across the seat. "Start walking. Maybe the 25 miles home will give you time to reconsider your priorities and your attitude." He pulled my door closed and drove away, taillights disappearing into the rainy darkness. I stood there, water streaming down my face, feeling strangely calm. This was the moment everything became absolutely clear. There was no going back, no more chances, no more benefit of the doubt. In abandoning me here, Garrett had freed me from any lingering doubt or guilt. The rain continued to pour as I reached into my bra, where I had hidden my secondary phone after Kyle had advised me to always have communication, means that cannot be easily taken. With shaking, wet fingers, I pressed the emergency contact button we had programmed. It rang only twice before Kyle answered. "Alicia, are you okay?" Garrett left me on Highway 18, about 25 miles east of the city, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I need help." "Are you injured?" "No, just soaked and stranded." "I have your location from the signal. Stay exactly where you are. I am 15 minutes out." I stood in the relentless rain, watching occasional cars speed by, none stopping. Exactly 12 minutes later, headlights approached and slowed. A black Ford truck pulled onto the gravel turnout, and Kyle stepped out, dressed in all-weather gear and carrying a large umbrella. He approached calmly, professionally, extending the umbrella over me without invading my space. "I have dry clothes, water, and a thermos of hot coffee in the truck," he said, as if rescuing stranded executives was an everyday occurrence. "Are you certain you are not hurt?" I looked up at him. This man who had never been anything but professional and respectful, who had prepared for this emergency without ever making me feel weak for needing help. For the first time in months, I smiled genuinely. "I am okay now," I said. As we walked to his truck, my phone buzzed with text messages from Garrett. "Have you learned your lesson yet? Are you ready to apologize? Where are you? Answer me." I turned off the phone and climbed into the warm, dry safety of Kyle's truck, knowing Garrett had just made his last mistake in our marriage. Kyle drove steadily through the storm, the windshield wipers creating a rhythmic backdrop to my racing thoughts. I had changed into the emergency clothes he kept in his truck, a simple set of sweatpants and a sweatshirt with the company logo, both several sizes too large, but wonderfully dry. "I am not taking you home," Kyle said, breaking the silence. "Based on standard security protocols for this type of situation, we need to secure you at a neutral location first." I nodded, realizing he was right. Going home to Garrett would be dangerous after what had just happened. "I have a corporate account at the Westlake Hotel downtown," he continued. "Security is excellent, entries are monitored, and they have a no-disclosure policy for guests. Standard procedure." His professional demeanor was comforting. This was not personal for him, just another security situation he was trained to handle. There was no pity in his manner, just competence. My phone had been buzzing continuously. When I finally checked it at a stoplight, I had 27 missed calls and 46 text messages from Garrett, escalating from annoyance to rage to panic. "Where are you?" "This is not funny." "I am driving back to find you. Answer me." "If you called someone for a ride, you will regret it." "I am coming home. You better be there." Kyle glanced at the screen. "You should document all of this. It will be important later." At the hotel, Kyle efficiently checked me in under the corporate account, escorted me to the room, and performed what he called a standard security sweep. He then positioned himself outside my door. "I will remain on site to ensure there are no security breaches," he explained. "Please use the hotel phone if you need assistance. My team is monitoring your husband's location through his vehicle's GPS. Standard procedure for potential threat assessment." I was struck by how he maintained absolute professionalism while providing exactly the protection I needed. There was no emotional messiness, no taking advantage of my vulnerability, just clear boundaries and expertise. That night, I made two decisions. I would file for divorce immediately, and I would get a restraining order. In the morning, Kyle connected me with Amy, an attorney specializing in domestic abuse cases who had worked with the company before. She arrived at the hotel with paperwork already prepared. "Based on what Kyle briefed me about, we have grounds for both an emergency divorce filing and a temporary restraining order," she explained efficiently. The abandonment incident alone qualifies as endangerment, but from what I understand, there is more. I spent the next 3 hours detailing every incident of control, monitoring, isolation, and verbal abuse. Amy recorded everything, occasionally asking clarifying questions while maintaining a composed, professional demeanor similar to Kyle's. "We need to retrieve your essential documents and personal items," Amy said when we finished. "Do you feel comfortable returning to your home with proper security?" The thought of facing Garrett terrified me, but I needed my passport, birth certificate, and irreplaceable family photographs. "I will handle it," Kyle said. "We can send a security team during business hours when your husband is likely at work." Kyle personally led the retrieval operation the next day. What they discovered shocked even him. Hidden cameras had been installed throughout our house, including in the bathroom. Spyware had been placed on every digital device. My personal documents were locked in a safe I did not know existed. "This level of surveillance indicates significant escalation beyond what you described," Kyle noted, documenting everything with photographs. "It substantially strengthens the case for the restraining order." Meanwhile, Garrett had discovered I was not coming home. He tried to freeze our joint accounts, but thanks to Amy's foresight, I had already transferred my portion of our savings to a new account the previous afternoon. What he did not know was that I had maintained a separate account all along, following Kyle's security advice months earlier about maintaining independent financial resources as basic security protocol. The confrontation came when Garrett appeared at my office, demanding to see me. Security had been briefed and intercepted him in the lobby. "Sir, you are not authorized to access this floor," the guard informed him. "My wife works here. I need to speak with her immediately," Garrett insisted, his voice carrying across the lobby. "I apologize, but we cannot allow you access without proper clearance," the guard responded calmly. "Do you know who I am?" Garrett shouted, creating a scene. "Call Alicia right now." I watched the security feed from my office, Kyle standing silently beside me. "This is standard behavior for individuals exhibiting controlling patterns when they feel their control slipping," he commented dispassionately. Documentation continuing. Garrett was eventually escorted from the building, shouting threats and accusations. The entire incident was recorded by security cameras and added to our growing file. The restraining order hearing came 3 days later. Amy had prepared meticulously, organizing evidence including text messages, emails, witness statements from colleagues, security footage, and photographs of the surveillance equipment found in our home. Most damning was the discovery Amy's financial investigator had made. Garrett had been systematically siphoning money from my inheritance into accounts I could not access. He had essentially been stealing from me while controlling my spending. Garrett appeared in court with his own attorney, portraying himself as the concerned husband of a wife having a mental breakdown and an affair with her workplace security director. My client was merely trying to protect his wife from her self-destructive behavior, his lawyer argued. The security measures were installed out of concern for her well-being during a period of erratic conduct. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence silently. When she looked up, her expression was resolute. "Based on the preponderance of evidence, this court grants the temporary restraining order for a period of 90 days, she declared. "The respondent is to remain at least 500 feet from the petitioner's person, residence, and place of employment. Furthermore, all surveillance equipment must be removed from the marital home within 24 hours, supervised by court-appointed personnel." Garrett's face registered shock, then fury. He had genuinely believed his performance as the concerned husband would work. As we left the courtroom, he called out, "This is not over, Alicia. You have no idea what you have done." 2 security officers stepped between us as Kyle efficiently ushered me to a waiting car. News of our separation spread quickly. Garrett launched a calculated smear campaign, telling mutual friends I was having an affair with Kyle, that I had become unstable due to work pressure, that I had abandoned our marriage without warning. Some believed him. Others, particularly women who had observed his behavior at social gatherings, reached out to offer support. I relocated temporarily to a secure apartment building where several executives lived, with comprehensive security systems and restricted access. The company covered the cost as part of their executive protection program, according to Kyle. That first night in my new apartment, with secure locks, monitored entrances, and the knowledge that Garrett could not reach me, I slept peacefully for the first time in years. The rain that had soaked me on that rural highway had washed away the last of my doubts and fear. I was finally free. Returning to work with the weight of Garrett's control, lifted from my shoulders, felt like breathing fresh air after years in a stuffy room. My team had been briefed only that I was dealing with a personal security situation, but their support was evident in small gestures, from coffee left silently on my desk to offers to handle evening presentations so I could leave before dark. Kyle had implemented new security protocols throughout the building. My office access now required biometric verification, and security personnel discreetly monitored the lobby and parking areas. These measures were presented as general upgrades rather than specific to my situation, preserving my privacy while ensuring my safety. Garrett, however, was not giving up easily. He violated the restraining order 3 times in the first month. First, by sending flowers to my office with a card reading, "I forgive you. Come home." Then by appearing in the coffee shop across from our building, staring at me through the window until security intervened. Finally, by waiting in the parking garage until a security officer spotted him. Each violation was documented, photographed, and reported to law enforcement and our attorney. Amy explained that this pattern was typical. "Abusers often escalate when they lose control," she said during our weekly update meeting. "Each violation strengthens our case and extends the restraining order. We are building a comprehensive record." Kyle continued to provide professional security support, maintaining strict boundaries despite Garrett's accusations of an affair. He never commented on the personal aspects of my situation, focusing solely on security protocols and threat assessment. "Your ex-husband's behavior fits established patterns," he would say, reviewing incident reports. "We can anticipate and mitigate based on known escalation trajectories." His matter-of-fact approach helped me separate emotion from strategy, a distinction that proved crucial in the months ahead. Gradually, I began reconnecting with friends Garrett had isolated me from. My college roommate Jenna flew in from Chicago for a weekend, horrified by what I had endured. "I knew something was wrong when you stopped calling," she said over dinner in my secured apartment. "You used to tell me everything, and suddenly your texts were so brief and formal. I should have pushed harder." "Garrett had convinced me you were too negative," I admitted. "He would check my phone after we spoke and critique everything you said." Reconnecting with my sister Alyssa proved equally healing. She had divorced her own controlling husband 2 years earlier, which explained why Garrett had been so determined to limit our contact. "He recognized me as a threat," she said when I explained his tactics. "I would have seen through him immediately." The most emotional reunion was with my mother. Her pneumonia had worsened after my brief visit, requiring hospitalization. I later discovered Garrett had intercepted messages about her condition, shielding me from unnecessary stress while preventing me from being with her. When I finally visited her in Portland, spending a full week in her home with a security detail discreetly stationed outside, she held me and cried. "I knew something was wrong," she said. "You sounded so different on the phone. So careful about what you said. Why did not you say anything?" I asked. "I tried, sweetheart. 3 times I tried to talk to you about it, and each time you defended him so adamantly, I became afraid of pushing you further away. That is what these men do. They isolate you and make you defend them to everyone who loves you." As divorce proceedings began, more disturbing financial misconduct came to light. Garrett had not only diverted my inheritance, but had taken out loans in my name and maxed out credit cards I did not know existed. Amy's financial forensic team uncovered evidence that he had done similar things to a previous girlfriend, though they had never married. "Financial abuse leaves a paper trail," Amy explained. "It is often the most concrete evidence we can present in court." Garrett's parents attempted to intervene, inviting me to lunch to discuss reconciliation options. I declined through Amy, maintaining the boundaries the restraining order established. They then tried coming to my office, only to be turned away by security. Your husband made some mistakes, but destroying your marriage is an overreaction, his mother Barbara said in a voicemail. Every couple has problems. Running to lawyers instead of working things out shows immaturity. I deleted the message without responding, newly confident in my decisions. The guilt Garrett had cultivated so carefully had finally dissolved. The most unexpected support came from Garrett's former girlfriend, Tiffany, who contacted me through Amy after hearing about our divorce from mutual acquaintances. I lived through 2 years of what you experienced, she wrote. The monitoring, the criticism, the isolation. When I finally left, he stalked me for months. I wish I had pressed charges instead of just disappearing. You are doing the right thing by creating an official record. Her validation helped counter the narrative Garrett was spreading among our social circle that I was unstable and overreacting. I began therapy with Dr. Eleanor, a specialist in recovery from controlling relationships. Our weekly sessions helped me recognize how gradually the control had escalated and how Garrett had exploited my tendency to see the best in people. Coercive control works incrementally, she explained. Small boundary violations that seem insignificant in isolation form a pattern of dominance over time. Your strength is in recognizing it before it progressed to physical violence. Kyle's team continued documenting Garrett's escalating behavior. He began appearing at restaurants I frequented, showing up at industry events he knew I would attend, and once even followed the company car taking me to the airport for a business trip. He is testing boundaries systematically, Kyle noted, reviewing the latest incident report. Each encounter is designed to demonstrate your security measures cannot keep him away permanently. Despite Garrett's attempts at intimidation, I refused to withdraw from professional life. When our biggest client, Hamilton Industries, requested an in-person presentation for their board, Garrett somehow learned of it and contacted their marketing director, suggesting I was emotionally unstable and offering to step in himself. The marketing director, Deborah, called me directly. Your ex-husband reached out with some concerning claims, she said bluntly. I wanted to hear directly from you before making any decisions. I explained the situation honestly, without emotional embellishment. Deborah listened silently, then responded with unexpected support. My sister went through something similar, she said. We will increase security for the presentation and ensure he cannot access the building. The board is looking forward to your insights, not his. That presentation became a turning point. Despite knowing Garrett had attempted to sabotage me, I delivered the most confident pitch of my career. Hamilton Industries doubled their contract, and I was photographed with their CEO for the company newsletter. The article, highlighting the innovative campaign we had developed, was shared across industry publications. It was the first time in years I had appeared publicly without Garrett's controlling presence, and the liberation was exhilarating. Slowly, I began rediscovering interests and passions Garrett had dismissed as frivolous. I joined a hiking group that explored trails around Seattle, reconnected with my love of photography, and even took sailing lessons on Lake Washington. Each activity represented a piece of myself reclaimed from his control. When Christmas arrived, I chose to spend it quietly with my mother, rather than attending the usual round of social obligations Garrett had always insisted upon. We cooked together, watched old movies, and talked openly about the relationship patterns she had observed but been afraid to mention. You are yourself again, she said, watching me laugh at a silly holiday movie we had loved since my childhood. I can see it in your eyes. I realized she was right. The weight of constant vigilance, of monitoring my words and actions to avoid criticism, had lifted. I was rediscovering joy in simple pleasures without fear of judgment or retribution. The road ahead would still hold challenges, but for the first time since that rainy night on the highway, I felt completely certain that leaving Garrett had been not just necessary, but life-saving. 1 year after the night Garrett abandoned me in the rain, I stood at the window of my new apartment, watching another storm roll across the Seattle skyline. The parallel was not lost on me. Rain that had once symbolized one of the lowest moments of my life now represented cleansing and renewal. The divorce had been finalized 3 months earlier. Despite Garrett's attempts to drag out proceedings with unfounded accusations and financial obfuscation, Amy's meticulous documentation and the evidence of his financial misconduct had resulted in a settlement that many considered a significant victory. I recovered my diverted inheritance plus compensation for the fraudulent loans and damaged credit. More valuable than the financial settlement was the impact the public court records had on Garrett's carefully constructed image. The charming, successful businessman was revealed as manipulative and controlling. Several of his clients distanced themselves, and his father finally stepped in to remove him from leadership positions in the family business, requiring therapy and financial monitoring as conditions for continued employment. My professional life had flourished in the aftermath. 2 months after the divorce finalization, I was promoted to Chief Marketing Officer, the youngest in company history. The announcement generated industry attention, with several publications highlighting my innovative campaigns and leadership style. This promotion recognizes not just your exceptional marketing vision, but your remarkable resilience and integrity, Richard said during the private meeting where he offered me the position. The way you handled personal challenges, while maintaining absolute professionalism, speaks to your character. In my new role, I established a workplace support program for employees experiencing domestic abuse, partnering with local organizations to provide resources and confidential assistance. The program included security protocols, legal guidance, and emergency housing options, expanding the company's wellness initiatives beyond traditional benefits. The first time an employee used these resources to safely leave an abusive partner, I recognized that my painful experience had created something meaningful, a silver lining I had never anticipated. My relationship with Kyle had evolved from strictly professional to a respectful friendship. He remained head of corporate security, and we collaborated on expanding the safety program throughout the company. Contrary to Garrett's accusations, our connection had never crossed professional boundaries during my marriage or divorce. Security professionals maintain clear ethical standards. Kyle had explained matter-of-factly when I finally addressed the accusations directly. Exploiting vulnerable clients would violate every principle of the profession. His unwavering professionalism had been exactly what I needed during the crisis, establishing a foundation of trust that allowed our later friendship to develop naturally and appropriately. My advocacy work expanded beyond the company. I began speaking at business conferences about recognizing coercive control in professional settings, helping other executives identify warning signs in their own relationships or those of their employees. These presentations always focused on professional impact rather than my personal story, but the message resonated powerfully. After one such conference, a senior executive from a competing firm approached me privately. "You just described my daughter's marriage," she said quietly. "I have been concerned for months but did not know how to name what I was seeing. Thank you for giving me the vocabulary and resources to help her." These moments confirmed I was on the right path, transforming trauma into education that could prevent others from experiencing similar abuse. Therapy with Dr. Eleanor continued, shifting from crisis management to deeper healing. We explored the patterns that had made me vulnerable to Garrett's manipulation and developed stronger boundary recognition. "You are not responsible for what happened," she reminded me often. "But understanding your particular vulnerabilities gives you power to protect yourself in the future." I reconnected with my authentic self through this process, rediscovering the confident, independent woman who had been gradually erased during my marriage. Simple pleasures, from choosing a restaurant without considering someone else's criticism to decorating my apartment with colors Garrett had deemed tasteless, became acts of reclamation. 9 months after the divorce, I encountered Garrett unexpectedly at an upscale restaurant downtown. I was dining with colleagues, celebrating a successful campaign launch, when he walked in with business associates. He looked diminished somehow, his confident swagger replaced by a careful restraint. Our eyes met briefly across the room. I felt a momentary tightening in my chest, an echo of old fear, but it passed quickly. What surprised me most was the emotion that followed: compassion. Not for his current situation, but for the deeply insecure person who needed control to feel powerful. I returned to my conversation without acknowledging him further. Later, as we left, he remained at his table, watching, but making no attempt to approach. The restraining order had expired, but he maintained distance, perhaps finally recognizing the consequences of his actions. That moment marked a significant milestone in my healing. I had faced my abuser without fear controlling my response. His power over my emotional state had finally broken completely. The deepest lessons from this journey came gradually, through reflection and integration. I learned to trust my instincts again, recognizing that the discomfort I had ignored early in our relationship had been wisdom trying to protect me. I learned that setting firm boundaries is not selfish, but essential for well-being and safety. Most importantly, I learned that vulnerability does not equal weakness. Sharing my experience, initially with therapists and attorneys, then with trusted friends, and finally through professional advocacy, transformed isolation into connection and shame into purpose. One evening, sitting on my balcony watching the sunset over Puget Sound, I realized I had finally found peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had reclaimed my life on my own terms. The woman Garrett had tried to diminish and control had emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. The rain that had soaked me that night on the highway had washed away illusions and pretense, leaving clarity and truth in their place. What Garrett had intended as punishment had become liberation. His cruelty had ended that night, replaced by a journey toward authentic freedom and self-trust. As I share this story, I wonder how many of you have faced similar moments of clarity in your own relationships, that instant when you finally see the truth that has been hidden beneath manipulation and control. If my journey resonates with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story matters and deserves to be heard. If this story helped you recognize patterns in your own life or someone else's, please subscribe to our channel for more narratives of survival and transformation. Every like and share helps another person find these stories when they need them most. Remember, the moment you choose yourself is the moment everything can change. Thank you for listening to my story. May you find the courage to honor your own truth, whatever that may be.